This is another graph which shows the energy that gets through to the ocean, which has the power to warm it. That little red spot is the computed effect of the infrared radiation from carbon dioxide, the global warming signal. It's tiny compared to the amount of sunlight that's got through to the oceans. All of that has come through from the cloud changes. Those oceans are storing the heat from that extra sunlight, and they've stored it in two main places, the North Atlantic and the North Pacific. The North Pacific has already lost that heat, which is why the Arctic is starting to get cold. The Atlantic is about to lose it, and we are about to get cold. That's my thesis. They don't agree with that. Okay, the cause of the cycles. You can gather all kinds of data from sediments, tree rings, stalagmites, and so on. You can find cycles going back thousands of years. And when you plot those with isotopes created by the sun's energy in relation to its magnetic field, you find direct correlations. And right now, the sun, its magnetic field, has dropped to the lowest point that's ever been recorded. We are in very unusual territory. There are no sunspots, and there should be. The last time there were no sunspots on the sun for any extended period, it got very cold indeed. And we think it's this magnetic relationship to clouds and to the oceans. Okay, so this is a festival site. A few weeks ago I was visiting some crop circles. Now if I put this slide into any of my scientific presentations, I'd be laughed out of the room. But this is a very perceptive crop circle. It occurred on July the 1st. It occurred at exactly the time when the first sunspot of the next cycle, it's been quiet for 3 years, occurred. And there's obviously a code here. There are 28 serpents. Those are spiraling Kundalini serpents which take the magnetic energy from the sun to its surface. And when they're most active, then the sun is most active, and when they're not so active, it goes quiet, like it's gone. And from that process, you can get what is called X-class flares. You can get sudden pulses of energy from the sun. The last major one was in 1859. It all depends on where they are and the timing. This crop circle looks like it's telling us something. If you follow the pink line going in, you'll see a little blob. It's the only blob in that crop circle of those 28 serpents. Why is it there, and what is it trying to tell us? It could be that something is building up beneath the surface of the sun and is about to pop. There are 28 serpents. The sun rotates its whole disk once every 28 days. The sun is a quadrupole, so it has actually 4 magnetic faces that it faces us with as it turns. It changes the magnetic field of the Earth 4 times in a 28-day cycle. So that's your week. The week has actually an astrophysical component to it. This crop circle has 28, 14, and 7 coded within it. So you can do various sums as to when it might be telling us that a major solar flare would hit. And a Carrington type event is possible when the sun goes from a condition of being very quiet, as if its energy is pent up inside, and then suddenly you get a major solar flare. The solar flares, if they occur within this active band that you're seeing here, this is what generates the solar wind. Then they send a pulse, an electrical pulse, to Earth, which gets here within about 8 minutes. There's no warning, and there's nothing you can do about it. The last time that happened was 1859, when there were no electricity grids. If the same energy was delivered today, and this can happen at any time, then the grids, perhaps globally, certainly in the northern hemisphere, would melt down. They would store the energy, they would travel with induction current and melt the transformers. Nobody carries spares on that scale. The US National Academy of Sciences has just made a report to Congress, and they have said, if such a flare happens today, it will take us 3 to 4 years to repair the electricity grid. Not only that, but the pulse is rather akin to an electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear weapon. It will take out every single computer chip on the planet. Thus, every vehicle manufactured since 1980 will stop. Every computer will go down. Those systems will not be repairable. 3 to 4 years to get the electricity back on in a modern society means no water pumping, no sewage pumping, no communications, no radio, no television, no newspapers, no food on the supermarket shelves, and no petrol in the petrol stations. And we're not ready for this. And this can happen at any time. And the point I'm making here is not particularly to scare you. I'm not particularly scared by such an event, although it would be very scary. It is to tell you, well, to ask you, are you aware of this? You're being told of a story which might be a problem in 2050 or 2100, and it may well be a problem, and which will suck all your energy and all your attention and lots of your money. But this thing you're not being told about. You're not being told that your society's not ready. There's only one society on the planet that's ready for this. Do you know which it is? Think about it. I had to. I have a friend who's living and working in Gaza Strip. He says, oh, we're ready for this. We don't have electricity, we don't have sewage, we don't have pumped water, there's hardly any food on the shelves. What we have got is community. Oh, that's just to show you that when the sun was last quiet with no sunspots, Europe froze in the winter. You could skate on the Thames. There was massive famine and disease and new diseases as well. Because one thing that happens when the electromagnetic field drops is our protection from cosmic radiation also drops and the mutation rate goes up. So I won't go into all the solar physics of this, but this is to show you that carbon dioxide is not the only thing that's been increasing in the last 100 years. The activity of the sun on an electromagnetic level has been increasing. That is a candidate. It will not be admitted. They will not allow these Danish theories to have any kind of currency or to in any way disturb the single story that is totally required if you want to get policymakers to do something. The problem is that that story is now 20 years old and it's out of date and there's new science coming in. And what that new science is saying is basically you've got it wrong. But are you going to be able to turn this huge supertanker of interests around? And particularly it's full of gravy. There's millions of people that benefit from this story. So how do you turn it round? So we're not being given the whole truth. Al Gore knows that because he's been party to a lot of the information going into Congress. I just want to introduce a little bit of that consciousness that occupied 95% of our evolution, shamanic consciousness. I asked a group of 100 people at the Green Gathering to meditate on Al Gore and climate change. But before they did that, and so let's close their eyes, pull a picture of Al Gore up and see what they got in terms of looking deeper. But before that, I asked them to concentrate on this owl and to invoke the shamanic energy of the owl, which is to look deeper beneath the surface. What will you find? And from that exercise came that the whole Gore thing is like a magician's trick. It's asking you to focus on carbon. Carbon in its earthly life forms, it's complex. Every single life form that's complex has a birth, a life, and a death. So survival issues are always in the background of your psychology whenever you think of carbon and carbon life forms and Earth. Certain death, and some American wit once said there's only two things certain in life, death and taxes. So now it's certain death and certain carbon taxes, carbon trading, carbon credits, carbon banks, carbon currency, effectively a global currency. What Al Gore is wanting you not to look at is the sun. And the sun is essentially hydrogen. It's simple. It's eternal hydrogen. It's not complex. There's a plasmic web, which is ethereal. It's cyclic. This is the energy of a free spirit. It's original and creative. It's the creative source. Don't, whatever you do, look on that, because that will strengthen your spirit and make you independent of the other energy that the magicians want you to see and to be afraid and to give them money.